Why are people still having children and they can't afford them? Well, besides just simply wanting to have children, besides a lack of contraceptive or not believing in abortion, besides having a breeding kink, procreation is something that, damn, why is it so hard when I actually got notes? The male population has an innate desire and damn near like survival instinct to procreate. Simple as that. Men want to preserve their bloodline. Men want to preserve themselves by living through their offspring and descendants, preserving their bloodlines essentially. The male population is just trying to survive. Men are surviving through women by creating offspring that carry their DNA. It is innate for men to survive through women, and the various ways they do is by using women's resources. So, hey, can I stay with you? Hey, can I borrow some money? You know, bum activity compared, like, yes, bum activity, hobosexual activity, shit like that. They're surviving in that way. That might not be with the intention of having children, but they are doing that. Using women for their unconditional love, you are surviving through a woman being very generous and not knowing who she is yet. So, through her being very giving, you are surviving in that way, and through procreation. Those are ways that men use women to survive. Procreation, having children, is the densest form of survival because it has, it's like, it's still a scarcity mindset, but it's not like, oh, I need somewhere to stay. Oh, I need some food. Oh, I need some money. No, it's like somewhere in you, you're just like, oh, I need to have a baby. Like, that's what I mean. Like, somewhere in you, somewhere in that man, he still feels like he needs to have a child. Now, I will say that this is more, it seems to be more prevalent and common in men of the older generation. I do think a lot of younger men, um, men born after the 80s, are not necessarily as interested in having families or going the traditional route. I don't think men in the newer generation are as interested in procreation. One, because yes, they're a little bit more money conscious, and they are seeing things for what it is, because we also got to see our parents struggle, and we realize we don't want to also struggle with children. I think that also because there is a rise in femininity being integrated healthily, but then also it being like um, making masculinity kind of also be a little less common as well in the newer generation. I also think that certain men that want children genuinely want children. But the majority of men that want children because they have a subconscious desire and need and survival instinct to survive. So, what does that mean for women? You might be like, well, don't women also want to have children? Yes, women definitely want to have children, but I'm convinced, and this is without me having needing any backup or research or whatever, and just strictly from my observation and my experience with people, women desiring children is not as much of a innate thing that I feel like it is with women. I think women have been programmed to want children. I also do think that, yes, certain women genuinely want children. Certain women do, right? But I do think that sometimes the feeling for wanting to nurture a child is kind of misplaced. I feel like, yes, you can want to raise children and really find children to be amazing and really want to be a mother, but a lot of women can be mothers just like you can be a father to something. You can be a mother to something without actually having children. You can be a good caretaker and a nurturer of anything that is an extension of you, anything that you possess, anything that you oversee, anything that you own, anybody that is amongst you. You can also exercise those same qualities anywhere and everywhere. Animals, plants, businesses, friendships, relationships, all that jazz. You can also put that into things that are not human beings. You can put that into things that are not children, okay? I do think that patriarchy's agenda from the time that it started was to convince women that we needed men more than we realized that we did. I think that that also looks like convincing women to be obviously very submissive, to seek marriage, and if we're not seeking marriage, to be romanticized enough to be in this to romanticize a relationship and marriage enough to where a man he is convincing you or coercing you into either marrying him or living with him or being in a long-term relationship with him. And with a lot of women, they get coerced or convinced to have a man's child, and a lot of times they don't really want that child, or they really might be in love, but they'll quickly find out that that's not what the hell. They'll quickly find out that it was almost like they got like, if that man is not like a man that was really about that life, like a man that really didn't want to be a real father, he just wanted to procreate, they'll quickly find out that that was really his thing. He just really wanted to procreate. He did not want to also um be a dad and like outside of like being a financial provider. He didn't want to engage with his children. He didn't want to go do things and be a very prominent figure, father figure in his children's life. Some women find that shit out later on, and then they end up resenting that man and the children that they had that man with. That's what I mean by it not being as natural. But women will still want children because, you know what I mean? Like they want to feel something that maybe also loves them unconditionally as well, possibly. Or maybe they genuinely, once again, want to have kids, but based on me seeing women grow up, based on me seeing my mom, based on me seeing relatives, based on me seeing ex friends that ended up having kids, they didn't really get as much of the privilege because they don't have as much as the privilege as someone that is wealthy with money that ended up being a single mother or just wealthy with money with kids. They don't have the same experience. It's almost as if having children is actually supposed to be more of a privilege, because if you have children but you don't have the emotional regulation or the free time to actually like engage with them, then they end up kind of being raised through the school system or on their own in whatever way and how they cope. If you don't have a nanny, if you don't have resources to pay for house cleaning, if or a chef or extracurricular activities that you can pay for, like these are also other ways in which children can have more attention on them without the parent coming home from a 9 to 5 already tired as hell, and then the kid is just like, hey, can you get me this? Hey mom, can you do that? God forbid she's actually single. It's almost as if like having children, I feel like, is damn near really a privilege, because if you really, 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 really gave a fuck for real, and if anyone could choose, they would choose to be more financially stable than to be struggling, scraping up money, working multiple jobs for themselves and their children, if you had to choose. So that's why I feel like, honestly, it's kind of a privilege to even be able to afford children and take care of children in the trinity that you would need for kids. Women get kind of like tricked into, I feel like, having children, or through the ulterior motive of the male species to survive, by being swooned and courted and being filled with flattery that they never got when they were probably younger or whatever, right? So, say for instance, you don't know too much, or you don't have like an internal compass that tells you like, hmm, I may like this person, but this doesn't feel right. But if you are too influenced by like media, if you're too influenced by social media, entertainment, whatever you're seeing that is placed in front of you strategically and purposely by all these outlet sources, then you will fall for the okey doke, because you might also have a um you might also have somewhere in you where you do want some validation, you do want some attention, you do want some romance, you do want some type of physical affection, you do want some type of fairy tale lifestyle, right? That could also be that they men use that to pretty much get you to keep them in a state of like they use that. I don't want to say it's predatory, but it is in a way. It's kind of predatory because they are aware of this. They're innately aware, like, women, most women, not all women, but the average woman is too easily influenced through wanting to, be in a relationship and have all the nice things that come with that, right? Men know that, and a lot of times certain men will put on the mask that they need to put on to make sure that they get what they want out of that woman. And sometimes that looks like marriage. Sometimes that looks like, I'm paying for everything, we can live together. Sometimes that looks like that looks like they're doing all the right things. They say all the right things. Sometimes that can go on for sometimes it looks like love bombing. Sometimes that can go on for multiple months and multiple years. The mask, I feel like, finally comes off when children arrive. But that's just my like estimate. That's just me guessing. I've never been in this real situation. I've been in a situation with men that, okay, well, you know, eventually I figured out who you were, but I've never been in a situation to where like I was trying to make something work with a kid and eventually we had a kid. Like, I've never been in that situation, but based on what I can see, based on um how I grew up, based on me seeing other people around me, relatives, etc., it's like it seems like when kids finally enter the picture, men are okay with leaving. Why is that? Because something in them naturally just wanted to procreate, and it's almost as if once they got that out, they felt like it was okay to leave. They felt like it was okay to go to the next person on top of whatever bullshit that they are not addressing within themselves, or whatever self-reflection that they need. It's like you have to ask yourself, why are men so okay with like leaving after creating an actual child with a woman? That's always been very strange to me, but it is common. And for the men who stay, for the men who are in marriages, the ones, excluding the very healthy ones where there is a very good co-parenting dynamic or whatever, excluding the relationships and marriages that are strong with children, that have individuals that actually want children. The ones that the men that stay but they don't care about their kids, they could be very much a good provider, but they might be having like side escapades just to fulfill themselves because they might not also like the mother of their child for real, for real, for real. Like for real. She might also be resenting him because she had expectations for him that he is no longer fulfilling. And maybe he had expectations for her that she does not want to fulfill. So he might be getting his rocks off somewhere else with a sex worker, escort, side piece, whatever. And it's not like it's completely like I don't like my kids or but the emotional attachment might not even be as strong as what you felt like it would have been because maybe you felt in love with him, whatever, whatever. You know what I mean? What follows right after marriage is always children. And for a lot of women, they had their children for their husband in exchange for financial and physical security. It's not always, oh my gosh, I want to be a mom. Oh my gosh, like I just can't wait to do all this stuff and take care of kids. Yes, it feels nurturing to be able to like be in that role for sure, for sure. Like I've always been able to imagine like taking care of a little me. But I do think that some women and men that romanticize having children sometimes might not be thinking like with a lot more foresight than they should. Like you need to think in years ahead, not just, oh, I have a newborn, I have a 1 year old. It's like you have to literally consider like the circumstance in which you're bringing this child here. And then you also have to consider like the challenges that you face, the challenges that you don't want them to face, the role model that you're going to naturally be, that like there's so many things that come with that. And the fact that they are going to be their own person and you are responsible for like the first 17, 18 years of who they end up being, right? And still having to detach from whatever version they end up being that you might not like, right? So, some men are still great fathers, but most also got in relationships in marriage to preserve their bloodline and pretend to give a fuck about their spouse and their kids. And the one factor that actually might be keeping the family glued together could be his escapades with a side chick or a sex worker. Because when women become wives and mothers, they resent it a lot of times. And some aren't honest with themselves about what they agreed to most men, marriage is ownership. So once there are now these rules of obligations and intimate obligations that were never discussed prior to being married. Okay. Um Men and women, they're gonna both kind of the people in that relationship are gonna kind of resent themselves, resent each other, and vice versa. So instead of leaving, sometimes instead of leaving and just being like, you know what, this ain't working, how about we go our separate ways? We can co parent, just we could keep doing the things that we want to do for our kids, but let's not live together. Like, let's not be married. Let's not try to force this. Instead of doing that, some people will stay in their marriage and have children, keep sometimes having children, and that relationship becomes either like abusive, it becomes a lot of passive aggressiveness, um and so on, manipulation, whatever, you know what I mean? Because one person might be trying to fulfill something like keep that relationship alive and the other person might not be trying to, you know um it could be a lot of different stuff on top, mind you, on top of like okay, postpartum and the recovery phase of like multiple pregnancies or one pregnancy. Like you don't know what that man is actually, you don't know what that woman is actually going through with that man outside of like her having to go through a whole pregnancy and recovery phase of that pregnancy. You don't know what type of time he was on. You don't know how he was really treating her. You don't know if he was entertaining other women. Like you don't know the very intricate and subtle things that were actually going on in people's relationship. I'm not saying it's always like this, but If you don't know who you are and you're getting married in your early 20s, I guarantee you it was a lot of this in the older generation that no one wants to talk about. And that's why I think the older generation kind of just is able to always look past what men are doing because they have made that shit the norm. They have made it the norm that, oh my gosh, everyone cheats. Men are always going to be lusting. Men are always, and it's like, yes, but like y'all didn't, I'm sorry that y'all stayed for that shit, but bitch, me and us and the kids over here, bitch, we ain't going for that. We're not going for that. Sorry, not going for it. Okay. Where did I leave off? So marriage and having children, I really think is more of a privilege. It's not as normal as you think to sit up here and one, be married, and then also, even if you're not married, it's not as normal as you think to just be sitting up here having kids with a man. And it's just like, okay, nigga, like both of our salaries are like under 20K. And that's if, you know what I mean? Like, we're not in, that's even if like we have a stable job. You know what I mean? That's if we actually like, I was born in poverty, but I didn't realize that I was born in poverty for real until like I realized that I was born in poverty. My parents were very working class people, but they also made me feel rich at home. My mom was always doing stuff at home with us, very interactive with us at home. My dad made us go out and do extracurricular activities, made us exercise, do martial arts. And it's not, having a two-parent household is not what people, it's lit when it's not a two-parent household. I'm sorry. Like, that's why I'm such a fucking well-balanced person. I'm telling you right now, because I was raised by multiple people. I was raised by grandparents, I was raised by my mom, I was raised by my dad, and I got to see my dad's side of the family. It was not perfect. There was a lot of like trauma that I still experience, but I'm telling you right now, I'm a lot more free spirited because there was not no, there, you know what I mean? Like, there wasn't this like load that was always on my mom all the goddamn time when she finally just moved back in with her parents. You know what I mean? Like, she could kind of just have a little bit more stress alleviated, um because it wasn't just her trying to balance a lifestyle with a man that wasn't as emotionally available and was just like a working horse and didn't have as much I don't know, like, you're not as engaging with us. Like, he was engaging, but he wasn't like the level that you would really need a parent to be, you know what I mean? Not as normal as you think that it's not as normal as you would think having children. It's not. It's not. It's actually a privilege, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard anyone else say that, but I'm sure other people think it or someone else has said that same concept, but it ain't even, bitch, that shit. Look. Yeah, because when you are wealthy with children, even if you are a single mother or a single father, right? You have money to fall back on. So, okay, like, it's a difference between I'm a single mother and I'm working like a full time job and I might not have that much of a community at all or not at all, right? And I gotta work a shitty job. I gotta work a job that I don't even want to be at. I gotta buy my kids things. I gotta make sure that they're enrolled in school, get them to school every morning, and da 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 da. Make sure food is ready, da 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 da. Like, you're surviving on a one income, and you're living in America. That shit is hard compared to someone living in America already being wealthy and can literally pay for a nanny. You can pay for a babysitter. You can pay for a lot of things that kind of like take all the stress away because you just have the money to be able to do so. That's two different experiences either way it goes. So I do think it is a privilege for people to be able to have children the proper way versus having children and it's like, okay, we just gonna make this shit work. We just gonna figure this shit out. We just gonna We just gonna improvise. Like that's two different experiences, okay? The working single mom with children, if she ends up being left alone or cutting off that man or whatever, then she might end up having to sacrifice more of her time and labor. But usually, if a man didn't want to be there in the first place, he don't need to be there. Like if he was willing to leave, let that motherfucker go. And if you know he ain't shit, but he still want to be around, let that motherfucker go and tell your kids the truth. So why are people of a lower income or people that can't afford to have children still having children? Because the patriarchy did a hell of a job keeping the narrative that everyone should be producing children when that is people's that everyone should be producing children when that is making people's situation harder than what it should be, and birthing children into a lower socioeconomic background, etc. These are men who have not cultivated the ability to integrate their femininity or take care of themselves without a woman. They have not figured out how to survive without a woman. Okay. And for the women that want to have children with these men, I'm still trying to figure that one out. But I really do think that actually I feel like someone that explains it very well is, make sure I say her name right, but the Forbidden Speaks on TikTok. She does an actual good job with like pretty much talking about the psychology of men, no, specifically the psychology of women and why women are doing what they do. All the dark things that women are not admitting to themselves, she's able to articulate that and break that down through her own lived experiences. So whatever I'm not able to say, I promise you she can break it down. She can break it down, and she has said some very profound things where I'm just like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So women have been programmed and traumatized through ages to think that having children is normal, or even worse, mandatory. I'm sorry, y'all. It's not I'm not going to say it's not normal. It's not mandatory to have a child. Okay? But if you want to rush the process, oh my gosh, I want to have children before this age and my eggs are going to blah 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 blah. That's on you, and I'm not mad about that. I'm not trying to shame nobody for wanting what they want. You want a mini me, and shit, if you have a mini me, that motherfucker, you better make sure that motherfucker, not to call your kid a motherfucker, but you better make sure that motherfucker is the fucking shit, bitch. You better do your due diligence. You know what I mean? So your kid is like, even if you can't afford kids for real, that nigga could be very badass. Like how my parents couldn't really afford kids for real. But at home they had me like, you know what I mean, doing a lot of shit. Um, engaging and just let me express myself. Like let your kids express themselves and like have a voice and like nurture whatever they're good at. Whenever you see that your kid is good at something, oh, they can sing, oh, they can dance, oh, they can write, oh, they can speak, oh, they have a good voice. Like you have to nurture that. Don't take that shit away from your kids, because when they get in the school system and they get around these other kids, it's like survival of the fittest. Sometimes it's like ate or get ate. So if you are doing the proper shit at home, you got to do your due diligence alone, so that way you are a good representation and role model for what they see. You know what I mean? So you know to each his own, but that's what I do. That's what I would do, I guess, if I had a kid, is make sure, like, of course I'm still a parent, I would still be a parent, but it's like knowing what I know about the world, I'm gonna make sure that they know who the fuck they are. Like that's point blank period. Like respect themselves and know who the fuck they are, and don't let anyone ever be able to tell you who the fuck they are, and teach them niggas how to fight. Of course, some women desire to be a mother and may end up being phenomenal at it. Okay, so you can genuinely really want to have children and take care of them. But again, from my observation, it's rare that the women I know that ended up having children, I've noticed while being raised by these women or witnessing these women as moms, they thought that they were going to enjoy it, but they couldn't wait to get a fucking break. Not only just because they were single, but even the ones that weren't single, it's like men don't have the natural like instinct to, not all men have the natural instinct to really like know how to be a parent. And then on top of that, like some women may have just not really wanted the baby, but still had the baby. They still ended up kind of like being a good mom though. Like they was just like, damn, I don't really want to have this kid. I'm young, but like they probably still ended up like, you know, coming to they grounded themselves in reality. Like, okay, I'm a mother and I'm raising somebody that's gonna eventually be an adult in this world. Like, let me wisen up and do the best that I can do. So, for me personally, I don't desire marriage, and I don't desire having children. However, um, I have never really been like, fuck them kids. If the kids were already here, like I like children. I just don't like niggas who want me to have they kids. That's when I'm like, fuck them kids. It's like, I'm not having your kids, right? But it would make more sense for me as a single woman to help my sister out, my fellow friend out, a relative out that actually had children that did not have a community or a village. It would make more sense to be like, I can watch the kids for you, or, help you exchange resources, do stuff like that. It would make more sense in my mind to help another single woman out with children rather than have my own kids, because then her kids are damn near my kids. The more I show up, I'm more like an auntie. I'm more like that person in those kids' lives that also influence them and also help raise your kids. It makes more sense. And I'm one of those people that would actually do it, but in the moment I don't have any friends and with children. And I don't know, I don't be like, I'm not around women right now. Like I'm not around like a lot of women, but I would feel really good about that. I feel like I would. Kids are amazing. Who don't like kids? It's fun as hell talking to kids. You could do so much with them. And their minds are so young, and they just make you feel so great whenever, well, I mean, I don't have kids, so this is my experience when I'm finally around children. I'm like, oh my gosh, so cute. I love them. I love talking to them. Like I have so much patience because I don't have children. So if you catch my drift, it's like, for someone who doesn't have kids but still adores kids or wouldn't mind helping out with someone's kids, it's like of course, because I don't have kids, so I have a lot of energy to myself. I'm not going to be annoyed with children because I don't live with children. I'm not raising a child. But that's just me. I know not everyone likes kids, but I knew that I loved working with children when I felt like I wanted to be a teacher, and I worked in the school system, but I didn't last very long. I was a teacher's assistant, and I worked with like kids from pre-K to like eighth grade, and I was a teacher's assistant slash after school caretaker. So even after school let out, like I was still there having to watch over kids and whatever, give them activities to do, stuff like that, right? Loved the kids, hated the system. Loved the kids, hated the system. Yes, some kids were bad as hell. They did not listen. They was going through shit at home, whatever, whatever. But the I enjoyed the I enjoyed kids, but I knew I didn't want to have them. And that's what I mean. It's like, just because you are a woman and you're good at being a caretaker or a nurturer or an overseer or a leader does not necessarily mean that you need to have your own damn kids. It could definitely mean, like, for in my case, it's like I could also play that role without having children, and I could help somebody out that has children already. And because I have a lot of my energy to myself, because I'm not giving it out to men, I could also, of course, to my like, not just freely giving myself out to anybody, but to my standard and to my like what I feel like is what I'm capable of doing without being so self-sacrificing. It's like, okay, cool, yes, I can show up for you in this way. That's what I mean. Or, you know, be a teacher again in some other kind of field outside of the school system, because we know that teachers be raising y'all's kids too. So anyways, yeah, that was more so on the dark side of why children are still being born in these circumstances. It's because men need to survive. It's because men are trying to survive. That is why, damn, this video ended up being 40 minutes. That is why, that is why. So, yeah, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Bye. Go check her page out.